What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new elemental, I shouldn't say new, but the improved elemental succession set. So as of 5.1.3, the elemental succession set has been updated, so to speak. It is now significantly stronger than it used to be, especially as it is on live currently. However, the question remains whether it is going to be a good set to use for magicka DPS. So first we'll be going over the changes that were made to elemental succession. We'll talk about a little bit what classes it might be best on, take a look at the mathematics behind it, and then we'll take a look at the actual parses that I did to kind of see whether or not the parses reflect the mathematical calculations that I ended up kind of figuring out. So first, the new and improved elemental succession. Just pull it out real quick for you guys. So this is the new elemental succession. So this is the light armor set that you can get from running Maelstrom Arena. At the end of every single arena, there will be a chest that spawns, and you can get pieces of this set here. If you want to get gold jewelry, you will need to place on the leaderboards and get the gold jewelry from the weekly leaderboard rewards that come from finishing Maelstrom Arena. You have to be within the top 100 scores from Maelstrom Arena. Typically speaking, as long as you're playing any class except for Sorks, you should be able to get onto the leaderboards. However, with the revelation that the VMA dual wield is going to be best in slot for stamina DPS, I do anticipate the leaderboards being a lot more competitive now in the coming weeks as people try to get the VMA axes and daggers. That being said though, if you're running something like a DK or a Templar or a Necromancer or a Warden, chances are you will be able to get onto the leaderboard as long as you're able to clear it within a reasonable amount of time. So the new elemental succession, the 2, 3, 4 piece still remains the same, so it's still magicka, spell damage, magicka, but the 5 piece has changed quite drastically compared to how it is on live currently. So in Scalebreaker, the new 5-piece effect is whenever you deal flame, shock, or frost damage, you gain 550 spell damage up for that element for 4 seconds. This effect can occur every 5 seconds per element. You can have multiple different elemental buffs active simultaneously. Now, one of the things that we kind of have to keep in mind here is that it only buffs flame, shock, and frost damage, so it does not buff things like magic damage. As of Scalebreaker, it does seem like certain abilities are going to make their way onto pretty much all the magic classes in the game. Those 2 abilities are Soul Trap and Entropy, or Degeneration, I believe is the morph that people tend to be using. Let me double check here. Yeah, so Degeneration. So Elemental Succession will not boost those skills, nor would it boost any other magicka damage. So certain classes, good examples of these would be something like the Magicka Warden or even the Magicka Nightblade. The set probably won't be very powerful compared to other sets, mainly because some of your damage is considered magic damage. So for example, the bear does magic damage for Magicka Wardens, Fetcher Infection does magic damage. So, you know, for Magicka Warden, Elemental Succession might not be very strong because the proportion of your Flame Shock or Frost damage is going to be lower compared to, for example, on a Magicka DK, where all of your class abilities that you're doing inflict fire damage. So that's kind of where Elemental Succession looks like it's going to be headed towards. It's going to be potentially a good set for Magicka DKs and also Magicka Necromancers, because all of your class abilities on Magicka Necromancers, generally speaking, will use either Flame Shock or Frost damage, usually some sort of combination of all 3. Now, the sets that you'd want to compare Elemental Succession to would be the traditional sets that you see here. So, for example, Spell Strategist would be one set, Burning Spellweave is another good set to kind of compare it to, and then also Mother's Sorrow as a front bar set here. So those are the 3 primary sets that I took a look at and tried to figure out a mathematical comparison for. I also did parses. I did 1 parse for each, so it's not necessarily going to be conclusive because there's some RNG involved in that, the crit chance, the lag on the PTS might make 1 parse worse than the other, for example. So the parses are going to be a little bit weird overall, not very conclusive unless I do multiple parses, which I didn't really have the time to do today. So here we go. First, we're going to go ahead and hop over to our trusty mathematical calculator here, R. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. Alright, here we are. So this is R, the old trusty handy dandy fancy calculator essentially. So I pretty much commented out pretty much my mindset and the thought process that was going on as I was making this entire kind of calculations. So we're using elemental succession as our quote base. So remember that when we were trying to figure out any sort of percentage changes, you have your numerator and your denominator. So basically I'm using elemental succession as my denominator, that is the base. So when I use these, I have 2373 base spell damage. So just as a reminder, when I say base, this does mean without any sort of modifiers. So we do add in the modifiers in our calculations here. We have 42.8% base crit chance. We have 1.85%, or just say 185% base crit damage, and our base magicka is 38,352. Now the theoretical max uptime should be 100 based on the PTS patch notes for 5.1.3. They did indicate it'd be 4 seconds cooldown. However, the tooltip does indicate 80%, so we're going to use 80% for our conservative estimate here. So then, based on the parses that I did, I figured out that on a magic DK running Soul Trap, Entropy, as well as Rearming Trap, or I guess Barb's Trap, we got about 82.4% fire damage. So we're using that as our basis here when we're taking a look at elemental succession here. So this gives the 5-piece a maximum bonus of 550 multiplied by the 80% uptime multiplied by the 82.4% fire damage that we have, and we get a total of 362 spell damage, roughly speaking, for the 5-piece bonus. So that's going to be added into our base of 2373 when we do our calculations. Now when we compare to Burning Spellweave, both sets do have a max magicka bonus and a spell damage bonus. So the changes here are that Burning Spellweave has lower max magicka, so 36,872, and it has slightly higher base crit chance, so 46.6% crit chance. Now theoretical max uptime for Burning Spellweave's 5-piece effect is 66%. So we do the math, 6.66 times 525, and we get 346 spell damage. Note that I am ignoring the additional burning DPS here, so this is going to be a conservative estimate because the additional burning DPS will contribute to the Burning Spellweave additional damage here. Then we have Mother Sorrow. Both sets have 1 max magicka, so the changes are lower max magicka on Mother Sorrow, significantly higher crit chance, so 59.2 base crit chance for the Mother Sorrow, and then 2244 spell damage on Mother Sorrow because we are losing that spell damage. Because Mother Sorrow in this instance is considered a front bar set, we do need to assume that we are on our front bar for about 2/3 of the fight and on our back bar for about 1/3 of the fight. So on our back bar we have a crit chance of 62.6, so this gives us an average crit of the formulas right here of about 70.2%. So that's the actual base crit that I ended up going with. I should say the modified crit chance. So this is with a major amount of prophecy included in. So our crit chance will be 70.2 when we do the calculations for Mother's Sorrow. And then finally for Spell Strategists, both have the max magicka and spell damage, with Spell Strategist having the additional spell damage armor bonus there. So Spell Strategist has lower max magicka and higher spell damage. Now the theoretical max uptime on Spell Strategist 5-piece is 100%, but more realistically, you're going to be seeing anywhere between 75 to 80%, just because timing is a little bit off sometimes. But theoretically, you could get 100% uptime on the 5-piece. So if we use 80% as our uptime, we'll get 400 effective spell damage on the 5-piece, which will be included in on our calculations. So our overall calculations, we're assuming that pretty much everything else remains the same penetration, same buff, same debuff, uptimes, everything like that. So the only thing we're interested in is basically the total max magicka, so effective max magicka, multiplied by our crit damage modifier. So this is the formula for the max magicka, effective max magicka that I use. You can also do it with effective spell damage as well. So you just basically divide your max magicka by 10.5 rather than multiplying your spell damage by 10.5 like I did here. So for Burning Spellweave, we had Burning Spellweave is our numerator, and again, Elemental Succession is our denominator. So we have the 2373 spell damage, and then we add on the 346 additional spell damage from the 5-piece bonus there, which is not added in there. Then we multiply by 1.3 to account for major and minor sorcery. Then we multiply that entire thing by 10.5 to get the effective max magicka that is equivalent to. And then we take our max magicka, so in this case 36,872. We multiply by 1.1 to account for the Warhorn bonus. All the other bonuses are already assumed to be active on our base chances here. And then for our crit damage modifier, this is the crit damage modifier equation here, so 1 plus the quantity of your crit chance times your crit modifier, crit damage modifier. So in this case, Burning Spellweave, when we have our major and minor prophecy up, we have a crit chance of 62.6%, and our overall crit damage modifier is unchanged, so that's 0.85%, or I should say 185%, or 0.85 here, because we do need to take out that additional 1. And that gives us our overall crit damage modifier. And then we basically divide that by the Elemental Succession, which has, with major prophecy and minor prophecy up, a crit chance of 56.8%. So for Burning Spellweave, again, this is going to be conservative because we're not including the additional burning DPS that's done by the Burning Spellweave 5-piece effect. We have about just under 1% additional damage. So if we take out that additional 1 and multiply that by 100, we get 0.9257. So in this instance, Burning Spellweave should be, in theory, a little bit stronger than Elemental Succession. Now with Mother Sorrow, we do the exact same thing here. And we get that Mother Sorrow is actually going to end up being a little bit weaker. So you see here, it's going to be about 4% weaker than Elemental Succession, and that is likely due to the fact that we have significantly higher spell damage bonus and our higher max magicka bonus here, which does seem to offset the overall crit bonus that you would get with Mother Sorrow. Now, of course, you could always run Mother Sorrow as your body set, in which case this mathematics would change a little bit, because then you put Sororia as your front bar set, which might change the mathematics a little bit, but if you're running Mother Sorrow as a front bar set, then it does seem like you will end up doing lower damage overall. And finally, for Spell Strategist here, again, very similar to Burning Spellweave, where we're seeing about a 0.8% increase in DPS if we were to use Spell Strategist here. So, with all these mathematics in mind, it does seem like Elemental Succession should be fairly competitive on a magicka DK. Things might change on a magicka Necromancer, which is the other class that people are thinking this set might be good for, mainly because the proportion of Flame Shock and Frost damage on a magicka Necromancer will likely be different than the 82.4% fire damage proportion here that we have for magicka DK. Now, hopping back over to Elder Scrolls, we're just going to transition things over here all over again. Now we're going to go see the actual parses and see how they stack up here. So again, the parses are actually very strange, and part of it is I'm trying out a new rotation with the magicka DK. Part of it is also there's some lag on the PTS, so again, I only did one parse of each, so there is going to be some variation here and there. That is not as very apparent here, but if we do multiple parses, it might end up averaging out. So this first parse here is with Elemental Succession, and we can see here for uptime, we got 66% uptime on Flame Succession. So generally speaking, you're not going to be able to hit the theoretical max uptime usually, unless you're very, very on top of your uptime, but even then, you're micromanaging things a little bit too much, and you might be giving up a little bit here and there in other areas here. So Flame Succession, we got 66% uptime compared to the 80% maximum uptime that we had in theory here. And we got 83.4k DPS. This next one is Burning Spellweave, which we got a 51% uptime. Remember, Burning Spellweave in this instance was a front bar set, so that might contribute to the lower overall Burning Spellweave uptime. If this was a body set, you could very easily get max uptime on Burning Spellweave here. We pulled 81.6k. This next one here is Mother Sorrow, and if we take a look at the split here, it actually ends up being a little bit more on our back bar compared to our front bar, so we had about 61% uptime. 61% of the time was spent on our front bar versus about 39% on the back bar. It's a little bit off balance there, and so we got 82.7k. And then finally, this is the Spell Strategist, which we got 80.3k, the lowest out of the 3 parses, with a 76% uptime with Spell Strategist, so fairly close to what our range estimation would be for Spell Strategist uptime here. So just based on these parses, it does seem like Elemental Succession should be a fairly competitive set for magicka DKs at the very least. Again, not 100% certain on magicka Necromancers, although we should see fairly similar results on a magicka Necromancer here. Mainly because, again, most of the class abilities that magicka Necromancers use do include Flame Shock or Frost damage here. So I would say, if you are maining a magicka DK or magicka Necromancer, I would consider potentially picking up Elemental Succession mainly as a front bar set. So again, this is mainly looking at front bar sets. Obviously, sets like Burning Spellweave, Mother Sorrow, Spell Strategist might be better as a body set, and this also doesn't look at other potential set combinations. This is just taking a look at using Zahn and Sororia as our body sets here. So this is just front bar weapon sets. So this mathematics will change, obviously, if we use Elemental Succession compared to Burning Spellweave, Mother Sorrow, Spell Strategist as body sets instead. So I would say, if you have Elemental Succession already saved up from your VMA runs, hold on to them for right now. If you have a magicka DK or magicka Necromancers, it might end up being a fairly decent set for you to get. And I do not believe this set is tradable at all, so you will have to farm VMA in order to get this set. You could run it on normal as well if you just want the armor sets, because it will drop armor on blue armor pieces on normal, so don't feel like you have to do VMA, but if you're trying to get the VMA Inferno Staff or the VMA Dual Wield for your stamina DPS, you might as well run it on Veteran difficulty. So that is it for this video. Hope you guys found this informative, and again, the results you see here are going to be specific to Magicka DKs if you're comparing these sets as front bar sets. Magicka Necromancers, and if you're using these sets as a body set, that's completely different, and I might do a second video on that later on, potentially next week. So again, hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.